What's up, guys? I'm starting a YouTube channel. I want something to be able to get my thoughts out of my brain and like onto some sort of medium. So I'm gonna do a YouTube channel. God's been teaching me a lot, and I want to get kind of some of my thoughts out there. It's also for my future kids, so they can kind of walk through life with me. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. So today we're gonna try to keep the videos pretty brief. I don't want them to be like podcasts. We're gonna try to keep them brief. But today we're talking about casual Christianity. So I gave a sermon through FCA on this at Robert Vela High School. It's a high school right next to UTRGV. So I went to go preach to them last weekend. I forgot when, but it was last week sometime. So today we're talking about casual Christianity. So casual, the definition of casual is relaxed or unconcerned. So whenever we're talking, hang on, let me move this a little bit this way. So whenever we're talking about this, we're talking about relaxed and unconcerned Christianity. So there's three things that a casual Christian, like attributes that they have. Number one is they don't try to flee or overcome their sin. Number two is they confess God with their mouth and not with their actions, with only their mouth and not with their actions. And three is they're not chasing God in righteousness. Our first point is flee and overcome sin. James 4:7 says that if we resist the devil, he'll flee from us. And it says, submit ourselves unto God and resist the devil, and he will flee from us. So we have two plants in our lives. We have the plant of our spirit and the plant of our flesh. They both need water. They both need sunlight. They both need soil. You only have so much water, sunlight, and soil in your life. So you got to pick which plant are you going to nurture. Are you going to nurture your plant of your spirit or the plant of your flesh? And whichever one you don't nurture is going to die. So if you don't nurture your spirit, you're not getting in your word, you're not praying, you're not going to church, it's going to die. If you're not nurturing your flesh, which we should not be doing, it'll die. So that's what we're ultimately trying to do is nurture our spirit and kill our flesh. Our next point going on, I'm not saying, also, last point on that one, I'm not saying that people who do struggle with their sin are not saved. I'm saying that people who are comfortable in their sin are not saved. People who are just comfortable and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go smoke, I'm gonna go drink, I'm gonna go lie, I'm gonna go steal, kill, whatever it may be. People that are comfortable with it and have no, like, they don't feel bad for it and they don't want to get away from it, those are the ones that are casual. Our next point is chasing God in righteousness. Proverbs 21:21 says, those who pursue righteousness and kindness will find life, righteousness, and honor. It says right there, those who pursue righteousness will find righteousness. So people who are not constantly in pursuit of more with God and in pursuit of more righteousness, they could be casual with their faith. Because there's like, it's like a spectrum. There's the far left, which is completely unknown, like you don't know God at all. You're whatever you may be, a different religion, you may be atheist, agnostic, whatever it is. Then there's a middle point where you're like, okay, I'm not doing anything really bad, but I'm not doing anything really good. And then there's the far right, which is what God calls us to be, which is on fire for him and on mission for him, and not being in like a middle ground of like, oh, I'm doing some good stuff but some bad stuff, or on the far left just doing whatever, So we need to be constantly on mission to make ourselves more righteous and pursue righteousness. And our last point is confessing God with only their mouth and not with their actions. Matthew 7:22-23 says, on that day many will say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, didn't cast out demons in your name, and do mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. That's like the absolute worst thing you could hear. That's my worst fear, is to hear that on Judgment Day. The path of salvation is narrow. The path of salvation is very narrow, and the path to wickedness is very wide. So kind of when we are talking about confessing God with our mouth and not with our actions, we talk about like you have tattoos that all over your arms and stuff that say, oh, I'm a Christian, I got a cross here, I have a verse here, like whatever. You have God first in your bio, you have a verse in your bio, all that, whatever. But do we have God first in our lives? And that's a really hard thing, to make sure you put him first before everything, because we have so much other stuff going on, but we're called to put God first and not make idols of anything else and put God first in our lives. Basically, okay, at this time I'm filming this, Bryce Crawford is a very, very big Christian influencer, and he put it in a very good way. There's like a fence analogy as we kind of wrap up talking about casual Christianity. So there's a guy in the middle of a field. He's on a fence, and to his left is the devil, to his right is God. He looks, and he's just sitting on the fence, and he's waiting to choose. So the devil on his left is like, come over to me, I'll give you everything you want. I'll give you all the desires of your flesh. Whatever you want in this life, I'll give to you. And then God's on the right, and he says, come to me and I'll give you life, and I'll give you life to the full. So whenever he's sitting in the middle trying to decide, he looks at both, and he just goes like, I'm just going to sit in the middle. I'm just going to get a little bit of the world and my flesh and a little bit of God. So then he sits there, and it all goes dark. And as it goes dark, an arm grabs him out of the darkness like that, and he sees it's the devil. And the guy on the fence is like, no, I didn't choose you or God. Like, I stayed in the fence. I stayed in the middle. I didn't choose either of y'all. And he goes up to him, and the devil goes up to the guy, and he says, the fence belongs to me. When I first heard that like, I don't know why it just hit so hard, but when I first heard that, it just hit so hard. So we need to identify, are we a casual Christian? Are we just walking our faith and not sprinting in our faith? Are we just kind of lolling through it instead of like really pursuing God and pursuing righteousness? So we got to identify what things in our life are we casual with, and what things in our faith are we casual with. And I'll leave y'all with this. Matthew 7:24 through 25 says, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like the wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came, and the wind blew, and the floods came, and they beat on the house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. That's Matthew 7:24 through 25, which is right after Matthew 7:22 and 23. The one saying that God is going to say, depart from me, I never knew you. So right after he says all this stuff like, many will say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not cast out demons in your name? Right after that he says, but the men who listen to this and build their house on the rock, being God, they'll be fine. That their faith is going to sustain, and that the rains will come, the floods will come, the winds are going to blow, but they will sustain. That's what I got for y'all in Casual Christianity. See y'all later.